The Tragic Fall of America's Sweetheart, the Anissa Jones Story. Part 1. The Discovery. August 28, 1976. Oceanside, California. The morning sun cast long shadows across a beachside home when the call came in. Officers arriving at the scene found what would become one of Hollywood's most heartbreaking tragedies. 18-year-old Anissa Jones, former child star of CBS's beloved sitcom Family Affair, dead from what the coroner would later describe as one of the most severe overdoses he had ever encountered. But this wasn't just another Hollywood casualty. This was Buffy Davis, America's sweetheart, the pigtailed angel who had captivated millions of viewers just years before. How does a child star, adored by an entire nation, end up dead on a stranger's floor before her 19th birthday? The answer lies in a story that Hollywood would rather forget. A cautionary tale of fame, exploitation, and a system that devours its youngest talents. Part 2. The California Dream. Let's rewind to where it all began. Mary Anissa Jones entered the world on March 11, 1958, in the heartland of Indiana. Her parents, John and Mary Jones, were ordinary people with ordinary dreams, until those dreams began to fracture. Shortly after Anissa's younger brother Paul was born, the family made the fateful decision that countless families before them had made. They packed up their lives and headed west to California, chasing the golden promise of a better life. But California's sunshine couldn't save a failing marriage. The divorce came swiftly, and with it, something far uglier. A bitter, protracted custody battle that would drag on for years. While the adults fought their legal war, young Anissa found herself caught in the crossfire, living primarily with her mother Mary. And Mary Jones had her own dreams, dreams that would soon become her daughter's destiny, whether Anissa wanted it or not. Mary saw something special in her daughter, an indefinable quality that she believed could be cultivated, shaped, monetized. At just 4 years old, Anissa was enrolled in dance classes. The neighbors in their new California community noticed it too. That certain sparkle, that camera-ready charm. They encouraged Mary to take Anissa to auditions for television commercials. And wouldn't you know it? The camera loved her. By age 6, Anissa Jones was appearing in commercials for breakfast cereal, her cherubic face beaming from television screens across America. Over the next 2 years, she would star in 3 more commercials. But these were merely the opening act. The main performance was about to begin, and it would change everything. Part 3. The Golden Cage, 1966. 8-year-old Anissa Jones walked into an audition that would seal her fate. A producer spotted something in her that he couldn't ignore, and just like that, she was cast as Buffy Davis on CBS's new sitcom Family Affair. The premise was simple, almost wholesome in its predictability. 3 orphaned children sent to live with their wealthy bachelor uncle. America ate it up with a spoon. And Anissa? She was perfect for the role. Almost too perfect. She was small for her age, which meant that at 8 years old, she could convincingly portray a 6-year-old. Those blonde pigtails, that innocent smile, the way she clutched her doll, Mrs. Beasley. It was television magic. Viewers didn't just like Buffy Davis. They fell completely, utterly in love with her. Family Affair wasn't just a hit. It became a cultural phenomenon. Within months, it climbed to #1 in the ratings. Buffy and her castmates became household names overnight. The network, sensing they'd struck gold, merchandised everything they could. Mrs. Beasley dolls flew off store shelves, becoming the best-selling doll in America. There were Buffy coloring books, lunchboxes, a line of children's clothing, even a cookbook with Anissa's face on the cover. But here's what America didn't see: the price tag attached to all that success. The production schedule was brutal. The show filmed year-round, and young Anissa routinely worked 7-day weeks to meet network deadlines. While other children her age were playing at recess or having sleepovers, Anissa Jones was on set, learning her lines, hitting her marks, delivering the wholesome performance that millions of Americans had come to expect. Cast and crew members would later praise her professionalism, her kindness, her natural talent. They spoke of how she would befriend guest stars to make them feel welcome, how she insisted on sharing any gifts she received with her beloved younger brother Paul, who accompanied her to set whenever possible. Stories emerged of her intelligence, her graciousness, her remarkable ability to make everyone around her feel special. She even caught the attention of royalty, not British royalty, but American royalty. In 1969, at the height of her fame, Anissa landed a small role in the film The Trouble with Girls, alongside none other than Elvis Presley himself. Despite this being her only feature film appearance, Hollywood pursued her relentlessly. Between 1967 and 71, she appeared on no fewer than 5 major talk shows, including those hosted by Merv Griffin and Dick Cavett. In 1967, she presented an award at the Emmy ceremony, quite possibly one of the youngest presenters in the show's history. From the outside, it looked like the American dream personified. But inside that golden cage, something was beginning to crack. Part 4. The Prison of Perfection. As the years wore on, Anissa Jones began to understand what she'd lost. While the show brought stability, that precious commodity most young actors desperately seek, it also brought something far more insidious: a prison of public expectation. She began to resent Buffy Davis. The character that had made her famous had also trapped her in perpetual childhood. America wanted their innocent, pigtailed angel, but Anissa was growing up, changing, wanting to explore who she might become beyond those confining pigtails and that frozen smile. The role felt increasingly babyish to her, a straitjacket that grew tighter with each passing season. And it showed. Keen-eyed viewers noticed that her performances in later seasons lacked the sparkle and energy of earlier years. The joy had dimmed. Perhaps sensing this shift, or perhaps simply following the natural cycle of television, Family Affairs ratings began to slump. In 1971, after 5 seasons, CBS pulled the plug. Anissa Jones, now 12 years old, was absolutely delighted. She was free, or so she thought. Part 5. The shadow that wouldn't lift freedom, as it turned out, came with its own chains. Anissa was eager to begin the next chapter of her career, to prove she was more than just Buffy Davis. But Hollywood had other ideas. She auditioned for the role of Regan McNeil in William Friedkin's 1973 horror masterpiece, The Exorcist. Playing a young girl possessed by a demon would have been the perfect pivot, a dramatic departure from wholesome Buffy. But Friedkin gave the role to Linda Blair instead, later admitting he simply couldn't imagine adorable Anissa in such a horrific context. She tried again, auditioning for the role of Iris in Martin Scorsese's 1976 classic Taxi Driver, a 13-year-old street worker who captures the obsessive attention of Robert De Niro's unhinged character, Travis Bickle. Again, perhaps Scorsese suffered the same mental blockage as Friedkin because the role went to Jodie Foster instead. The message was clear. Hollywood couldn't see past Buffy Davis. The very character that had made Anissa famous had now made her unemployable for the roles she desperately wanted. She was typecast, branded, frozen in amber as America's eternal 6-year-old. And so, as she entered her teenage years with little professional success, Anissa Jones began to spiral. Part 6. The Descent. She discovered what so many child stars discover when the spotlight dims: the allure of rebellion, the thrill of finally having choices, even if those choices were destructive ones. She turned to drugs and shoplifting, seeking excitement in all the wrong places. She attempted a few normal jobs, but couldn't hold any of them down. Friends and family reported erratic mood swings, unpredictable behavior, a young woman clearly struggling to find solid ground. Then came another devastating blow. On March 7, 1974, just 4 days before Anissa's 16th birthday, her father John died from cardiovascular disease. The custody battle that had raged throughout her childhood was finally over. but not in any way anyone could have wanted. Technically, her mother Mary was now her legal guardian, but Anissa rarely spent time at the family home. She would disappear for days at a time with friends her mother considered terrible influences. Mary, furious and frightened, frequently filed missing person reports with local authorities when Anissa vanished. The relationship between mother and daughter had deteriorated into something bitter and broken. Two people who perhaps had never really understood each other, locked in a dance of disappointment and desperation. Part 7, The Final Act, March 11th, 1976. Anissa Jones turned 18 years old. Under California law, this meant she was finally entitled to access all the money she'd earned during her years on Family Affair, funds that had been held in a savings account on her behalf. The payout was substantial, just under $200,000, a fortune for an 18-year-old in the mid-70s. She began spending it as fast as she could, primarily on her new favorite hobby, partying. Hard. The substance abuse that had begun as teenage rebellion intensified dramatically. Her life spiraled further out of control. Within 4 or 5 months, she'd blown through most of that $200,000 fortune. August 27, 1976. Anissa decided to take a trip with her boyfriend and some friends to party in Oceanside, a beachside town in California. The party eventually moved to the home of the father of one of Anissa's 14-year-old friends. The next morning, August 28th, Anissa Jones was found dead. The coroner was shocked by the toxicology report. Even for someone experienced in examining overdose victims, this was extreme. He would later call it one of the most severe overdoses he had ever encountered in his career. Such a young girl, so much consumed, so quickly gone. Her family held a small private service. Anissa had always loved the seaside, so they had her body cremated and scattered her ashes over the Pacific Ocean, returning her to the California dream that had, in the end, consumed her entirely. Part 8, The Doctor Will See You Now. But the story doesn't end with Anissa's death. In fact, that's when it gets even darker. Among the items found at the scene was an envelope bearing the business address of Dr. Don Carlos Moshos. Inside that envelope was a detailed description of the type and quantity of one of the substances that appeared on Anissa's toxicology report. This doctor, it seemed, had been playing the role of Dr. Feelgood for the young actress, prescribing illicit substances on demand. And here's the thing. Dr. Moshos was already under investigation for suspicious professional practices before Anissa's death. As the media began digging, the picture that emerged was genuinely horrifying. Moshos ran what was essentially a prescription mill. Other occupants of his office building reported seeing long lines of people, mostly young people, many around Anissa's age, waiting outside his office. The numbers, when they finally came out, were staggering. This doctor would write over 100 prescriptions per day. 100 per day. A local news team conducted an undercover investigation and found his requirements laughably lax. Show a valid ID, tell him what you want, pay $5, walk out with your prescription. It was that simple. No medical examination, no questions about symptoms or medical history. Just cash and carry. Is it any wonder then that an 18-year-old girl was able to obtain the massive, fatal quantities of drugs that killed her? Doctor. Moshos had made it absurdly easy for troubled young people to get their hands on lethal amounts of dangerous substances. Part 9. Justice denied. The authorities moved quickly. Just 6 days after Anissa's body was discovered, Dr. Moshos was apprehended at his office in Torrance, California. He was charged with illegally prescribing Seconal to the young actress and hit with multiple additional charges of prescribing for profit stemming from a separate undercover investigation. 11 offenses in total. But Anissa's killer would never face true justice. Despite being a doctor, Moshos was profoundly unhealthy. He suffered from diabetes, hepatitis, and high blood pressure. On December 6, 1976, Just 4 months after his most famous patient died, he was admitted to the hospital. 3 weeks later, he was dead. The Jones family still wanted their day in court. They sued the doctor's estate for $400,000. A 1979 verdict found the doctor only 30% liable for the young actress's death, resulting in a payout of $79,500 to her family. 30% liable. Let that sink in. The man who prescribed the drugs that killed her was found only 30% responsible. One wonders, who bore the other 70%? Society? Hollywood? Anissa herself? Part 10. The Curse of Family Affair. The tragedy didn't stop with Anissa. In 1984, her mother Mary experienced another unimaginable loss. Paul Jones, Anissa's cherished younger brother, the boy who had always accompanied her to set, who had been her anchor and her truest friend, overdosed on March 15th. It was just days after what would have been his sister's 26th birthday. He was only 24 years old, 2 children, both dead from substance abuse, both gone before their time. The grief Mary Jones must have carried is almost incomprehensible. But even the curse of family affair extended beyond the Jones family. Sebastian Cabot, who played Uncle Bill, died from a stroke in 1977 at age 59. Brian Keith, another cast member, took his own life in 1997. It's as if the show itself was cursed, as if the wholesome, perfect family they portrayed on screen somehow demanded a blood price in real life. Epilogue: The Cost of Innocence. So what do we learn from the tragedy of Anissa Jones? What cautionary tale can we extract from the wreckage of this young life? Perhaps it's this: the entertainment industry, particularly in its treatment of child performers, operates as a machine that consumes innocence and spits out damaged adults. Anissa Jones worked 7-day weeks when she should have been learning arithmetic and playing with friends. She was merchandised, packaged, and sold as a product when she should have been discovering who she was. She was trapped in a character when she should have been free to grow and change and make mistakes in private, as all children should. And when that machine was done with her, when Family Affair was cancelled and Hollywood decided it had no more use for Buffy Davis, she was cast aside with no support system, no counselling, no acknowledgement of the psychological toll that years of childhood fame had taken. She had money, yes, but money without wisdom is just fuel for self-destruction. She sought escape in drugs, found a doctor willing to supply them without question, and died alone at 18 years old. Her potential forever unrealized, her story forever unfinished. Anissa Jones was not weak. She was not stupid. She was not uniquely flawed. She was a child who was asked to bear the weight of an entire television show, who sacrificed her childhood for America's entertainment, who was then discarded when she tried to grow beyond the character that made her famous. She deserved better. They all deserved better. Every child star who has fallen into this same trap. Every young performer who learned too late that fame is not the same as love, that adoration is not the same as support, that being recognized is not the same as being seen. Anissa Jones loved the seaside. In the end, that's where her family returned her, scattering her ashes over the Pacific Ocean. Perhaps there, in those endless waves, she finally found the peace and freedom that Hollywood could never give her. Remember her name, remember her story, and remember that behind every child star's smile, there might be a little girl who just wants to be a little girl. Not a product, not a brand, not America's sweetheart, just herself, whoever that might have been. Her story ended at 18. But the questions it raises about how we treat child performers, about the systems that fail to protect them, about the doctors who profit from their pain, and about our own complicity as an audience that demands perfection from children, those questions remain unanswered. And they deserve our attention, our outrage, and our commitment to do better. Because if we don't learn from tragedies like Anissa Jones's death, then her suffering truly was for nothing. And that, more than anything else, would be the real tragedy.